Hi guys, Vipin here. Firstly, thank you for the awesome responses I'm getting for these videos I'm uploading. I really didn't expect that you guys would like it so much, but I'm so glad that you did. As always, please go about subscribing to my YouTube videos. Please share them. If you have any queries with respect to the topics I discuss, leave them in the comment section and I'll get back. Once again, thank you for the amazing response I'm getting for these videos. Okay, now this particular topic, when it comes to indices, in this video I want to discuss about Sensex, and I'm warning you in advance, this video is going to be very technical. There will be a lot of jargons. However, I'll do my best in trying to keep the topics as simple as possible, so bear with me. Okay, now let's firstly understand what is Sensex. Sensex has been considered to be a benchmark index for Bombay Stock Exchange. Now, what do you mean by a benchmark stock exchange? Now, a benchmark in general refers to a standard. Now, when you have a benchmark gold standard of say 22 karat gold, okay, 22 karat gold is like 99% gold. Now, 22 karat is in fact a benchmark. Sensex, on the other hand, is a benchmark for a stock index. If you remember the previous video, there are many indices in Bombay Stock Exchange. However, what everyone looks up to is Sensex. Okay, the general idea, like I said before, if Sensex is doing well, India is doing well. I know that's a very debatable topic, but that's what many people look at. That is, if Sensex is in fact doing well, so is India. Okay. Now, what does Sensex consist of? Sensex consists of 30 stocks from all key sectors which are actively traded. Now, what is meant by key sectors? Now, key sectors are those which influence the economy to a significant extent. Now, for example, a key sector in the economy would be the telecom business, okay, the telecom industry. If you look at it, India happens to be the second largest market for telecom in the world. That's why you have so many companies ready to sell their services in this country. China, of course, is the number one when it comes to the largest telecom market in the world. Another industry, wherein it is considered to be a key sector. For example, you have healthcare. Okay, healthcare in India is getting more and more organized, and a lot of companies in the business of healthcare and pharma are doing extremely well. So you have these companies which are part of this particular industry are eventually added to Sensex. You even have other sectors. For example, you have construction, real estate, you have banking, many sectors you have when it comes to Sensex. Now, I couldn't really fit in all the companies that are there in Sensex. If you want to know what companies are there in Sensex, you can always visit the Bombay Stock Exchange website and you can see the list of companies that are there. Now, this is just your composition of the various sectors that are there when it comes to the Sensex benchmark index. Okay, the leader there happens to be finance. Finance here refers to financial institutions and banks. There is a minor difference between financial institutions and banks. Don't worry about it. I'll discuss them in detail in another video. Other sectors that you have there is FMCG, oil and gas, transport equipments, healthcare, capital goods, metals, power and telecom. As you can see, you have a weightage which is given to each of these sectors. Okay, finance having the highest sector and telecom having the lowest. One of the reasons why the telecom sector has been given a lower weightage is because if you remember the 2G scam, a lot of companies lost a large amount of money for that particular incident, and they had to spend additional amount of money to get back those licenses. So many companies, even leaders like Airtel and Vodafone, have lost a large amount of money in doing that. So over a course of time, their market capitalization has fallen because of that. and Sensex has in fact lowered their weightage in the index. Okay, now do stocks in Sensex change? Yes, they do. Standard & Poor is the company that designed Sensex, and there are quite a few criteria that they need to fulfill in order to continue to be listed on Sensex. One major criteria they need to fulfill is the market capitalization requirement. It's around 1000 crores, the market capitalization requirement to be part of Sensex. Almost all companies in Sensex are large cap companies. Okay, so that's one of the criteria they must fulfill. Also, the volume of trades that happens in these companies should be significantly high. You don't really see the little companies in which are there in this country to be put on Sensex. For example, you may have come across this company called Jet King. They are into educational services. They provide various courses like C, C++, Java, all these courses they provide. Even that happens to be a publicly traded company. However, even though it's a publicly traded company, you don't see the volumes as high as how you would see for a company like, say, Reddy Laboratories. So these little companies are not listed in Sensex. Okay, even companies like DLF, Reliance Power, and even Kingfisher Airlines was part of Sensex once upon a time. Now the reason why these companies were removed is because the market capitalization fell. Okay, DLF was an extremely well-to-do company. I remember when they launched the IPO, how big the sensation was. In fact, DLF even had the plans to be the largest IPO in India. They wanted to raise around 20,000 crores from the public. Over a course of time, Kingfisher, DLF and Reliance Power lost their market capitalization value, and hence all of them have been taken out of Sensex. Okay, as I mentioned, even Satyam was once upon a time part of Sensex. Okay, yes, and the index is dynamic, it keeps changing over a course of time. Now, how is Sensex calculated? Here comes the difficult part, and this is something which everyone must know. You see information when it comes to Sensex in the media. Okay, usually in the right hand bottom corner, you come across information of the various indices, not just India, globally, which are updated in the news channels, the business news channels, all of them. So how do you calculate Sensex? How do you arrive at, say, today Sensex is 20,000 points, about a few years ago it was 16,000 points, all that. Okay, firstly, let's understand what is the meaning of free float market capitalization, or let's just understand what is meant by free float. Now you will find millions of people in this country who are trading on Sensex. Now what if you had a person who is having a large share in a company? Let's say he's a promoter in a company. Usually people who are in the top management of the company, such as promoters, they will usually have like 10-12% per person of the overall shares in the company, and that runs into lakhs or even crores of shares they would have. If these people are buying and selling shares, they'll be doing this in extremely large volumes. So if these people are trading in such large volumes, single-handedly they could affect the Sensex stock index. So what has happened is, Bombay Stock Exchange has come out with a very clever idea. If you are a large shareholder, let's say you are a government or you are a promoter, any transaction you do in any of the Sensex companies, your transaction will not be considered for the influence of the overall index. It's not considered for the influence of the overall index. Okay, in case if you guys remember, if you were playing gully cricket when you were young, you would usually have a strong player who is part of just one team, and you would negotiate with the other and say, no matter how many runs he scores, it's not going to get added. Now you do that because you don't want one person influencing the overall situation. The same thing is what has happened with Sensex. You don't want one large shareholder influence the index to a large extent. So that's what they mean by free float. If you're a large shareholder, good possibility that your particular trade is not going to be affected the overall index value. It's not going to affect the overall index value. So how do you find out if this guy is in fact a large shareholder or not? Simple, you have computers. You cannot trade in the stock market anonymously. You will have a trade ID. Now using this trade ID, the clearinghouse will come to know whether or not you're a large shareholder or whether you're a small shareholder, say someone like me. My trades could influence Sensex. Of course, considering the volume of trades I do, it really doesn't. But just saying, investors like me are the ones that actually influence Sensex. Large shareholders, let's say for example Vijay Mallya, or say for example even Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, people like them, if they are trading in the economy, their trades don't really influence Sensex to any extent. The exchange has made sure that these large shareholders, the transactions that they do doesn't influence the stock index. Of course, they're allowed to do it. It's just that it will not be considered for the calculation of Sensex. So you do this for 30 companies. Okay. You consider the market capitalization of 30 stocks. Market capitalization, like I said, the number of trades that have been done multiplied by the value of every trade, or the number of shares that have been traded multiplied by the value of every trade. Now, as you can see, if you do this for 30 companies, you can expect an incredibly large number. This will run into several thousand crores, possibly even several lakh crores. Okay, this will be multiplied by the base value of the index in 1978, 1979, divided by the market capitalization of the index in 1978, 1979. Now this is where I was unable to get some information on. I was able to understand the numerator value as 100. Okay. However, I wasn't able to get the right information when it comes to the market capitalization of the index in 1978, 1979. I hear some articles say the market capitalization was 60,000, but what I noticed there was they said, let's assume the market capitalization to be 60,000. The denominator there for some reason is an assumption, and I'm not able to get the right value on what is the market capitalization of the index 1978 and 1979. I am 100% sure that both the numerator and the denominator are constants, because you're talking about a number which happened in 1978 and 1979. It has to be a constant. I'm sure no one went back in time and kept changing it. The numerator on the other hand is 100. The denominator, I'm sorry, I'm not able to know what that value is. Okay. So now here is where it gets even more trickier here. Okay. Now remember, I told you that you need to calculate the market capitalization, the free float market capitalization of 30 stocks. Yeah. Now the tricky part comes somewhere here. Okay. Now here I've given you a small example on promoters holding and the public shareholders holdings, and how you calculated the market capitalization of that particular stock. Now in the fourth point that I've listed in this particular slide, okay, you can pause and read it later if you want. In the fourth point that I've listed there, I have arrived at the market capitalization of this company as 96,000 rupees. Now 96,000 rupees is going to be multiplied with something which is known as a free float factor. Now what is the free float factor? That's something I need to go back to. What is the free float factor for every company that is there in Sensex? Now remember, I told you, you have different sectors in Sensex and each company is taken from that particular sector. Okay. Now there as well, the index considers what is the impact of each of these companies to the overall economy. Now let's say for example 96,000 rupees, 96,000 has a free float factor of say 0.5. Okay, 0.5 is the free float factor. 0.5 being the free float factor, meaning I should consider around 50% of the value to be added to the overall market capitalization. For example, if I consider 96,000 rupees having a free float factor of 0.5, I should consider around, say, 48,000 rupees. Okay, 48,000, is that right? Yeah, I think it's right. 48,000 rupees I should add to the other market capitalizations of the other companies. And all the companies I should consider the free float factor. One company might have it as 0.5, one company might have it as 0.35. So I should consider 0.35 of the overall market capitalization and keep on adding this. You can see how complicated the mathematics actually gets. Okay, I wish I could demonstrate this on a board, but unfortunately I don't have one. And the best I could do is explain this orally. So you add the free float factor, you multiplied that with the base index number of 100, divided by the market capitalization of Sensex in 1978 and 1979, and voila, you have the value of Sensex being calculated. For heaven's sake, please don't do this on paper. Okay, I wouldn't advise anyone to calculate this on any system, in fact, because the calculations here are really big numbers, and you need some really good skills in mathematics to do all this, and of course a lot of patience to do this. And upon arriving at that, you would come to know what is the value of Sensex at that particular moment. Sensex is calculated every 15 seconds. So you can imagine how much of variables are taken into consideration in order to arrive at this particular value. Okay, don't worry about it. You have computers that go about doing it. So, and this is just purely for the sake of statistics, and I enjoy calculating things like this, but I'm not insane enough to do calculation of Sensex on paper or even on Excel. So, moving on. Are other indices also free float? Not necessarily. Dow Jones is a price weighted index. Dow Jones is so easy to calculate, even a student in his 4th standard or 5th standard with basic addition can do it. Okay. Now, for example, if you were to calculate the Dow Jones price index, what is it that you need to do? Add up all the share prices of all the companies listed on Dow Jones. Now, Dow Jones has around 30 companies. Let's say IBM is there. The current trading price of IBM is $60. Yahoo is there. The current trading price is, say, $40. 60 plus 40 plus the remaining prices of the 28 other companies that are there in Dow Jones. Divide them with something which is known as the Dow divisor. Okay, the Dow divisor is more or less a constant. Once in a while they go about changing it, and I haven't really researched on how they calculate the Dow divisor. So it's effectively like how you calculate average. You add up everything and you divide it by a particular value. So here, add up the value of all the 30 stocks divided by the Dow divisor, and you will be able to arrive at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Okay, or Dow Jones Industrial Index, DJIA as it is known as. Okay, so that's a price weighted index. Another one that you have there is the Hang Seng. Now Hang Seng is I might run out of breath in just trying to say the name of this index. Free float adjusted market capitalization weighted stock market index. Try saying that 3 times without screwing up. So how do you calculate Hang Seng? Hang Seng is very similar to Sensex, but unlike Sensex, Hang Seng considers the value of the index as of the previous day. Sensex doesn't consider that. Sensex doesn't use the value of yesterday's closing value with today and arrive at a number. Hang Seng considers that. Now this is one of the reasons why you have each index at a different value. Dow Jones uses price weighted index. So the way you would arrive at a value is entirely different compared to how you would arrive at a value if you use Hang Seng. Hang Seng is Chinese, and you can imagine how goofy Chinese are to do something like this. Sensex is considered with a different way. Nikkei is done in a different way. Dow Jones, of course, is done in a different way. Each index has got its own way in which they go about measuring the value. And remember, the general tendency is higher the index value, better the economy is doing. For a long period of time, Dow Jones was doing terribly because American markets were in recession. Okay. For a long period of time as well, even Sensex was doing badly because even India was more or less in a state of recession. Sensex saw a huge fall in its points in the 2008 year. The reason being American markets also collapsed then, and that influenced the Sensex value here. Okay. We were 20,000 points way back in 2007, 2008 itself. But thanks to bad economy from 20,000 points, we sank to below 15,000. And gradually, since about 8 years, I guess, not sorry, 8 years, around 7 years, we've been very slowly picking up, and we have been trying to come back to the 20,000 point margin again. But remember, each stock index has got its own way of calculation. The general tendency, bigger the value of the index, better the index is actually doing. Okay. So with this, I hope you've understood about Sensex. I'm sorry if it got a little too technical in the previous slides. I will go about explaining that in detail if you want me to. Okay. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day.